Welcome to 10 o'clock Tech Talk with your host, Milt Ritter.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of 10 o'clock Tech Talk, and hopefully it's not the last. In this tutorial, we're going to explore the world of television and video production as it relates to the Beavercreek United Church of Christ. And so this is a tutorial for the folks who are stepping up to do the work of keeping us online. And we really appreciate that. Thank you so much, because it is it's not only great support for the church, but it is a sacrifice from you, because you could just be sitting in the pews, you know. So this tutorial is not about the tech stuff like how to run the switcher or the audio mixer, how to load graphics or get us on Zoom or anything like that. It's about the aesthetics of television production and what makes a good video and audio production. I spent most of my life, adult life, working in television, and I, lived and breathed a lot of the rules that kept us going and kept our aesthetics the way they are. And there are a lot of rules that may not even occur to people as much as people watch television and movies. There's just a lot of rules that are happening behind the scenes that make television and movies look good. And so that's what this tutorial is really going to explore. And so hopefully after this tutorial, our productions will look really spiffy. I mean, they're looking pretty good, but there's a few things that we can do to make them look really great. One of the things that we found out during the whole COVID thing is after people started watching church from home, they got the idea that, hey, we could actually shop for a church from home. So that's how now people do find a new church to go to. So if your production doesn't look really great, you're likely to get skipped over. It's one of the things that television stations have known for a long time, that if a video production or a television show does not come up to a certain level, or has some foibles in it, the audience will eventually just tire of it and tune out. And that happens in these sorts of circumstances as well. When people are looking for a church, if the video production doesn't look great, they're going to go, well, I wonder if that church is really that great. It doesn't look that good, So we want to make it look really great, because it is our online service is an outreach tool now, and so we want people to think that we're a pretty nice church, which we are. But our online video production has to show that. Okay, let's get right into it here. The way our online service starts now is a couple minutes before the service actually starts. The director will start the recording, and we'll start with a card up with the daily meditation on it, and it looks kind of like that. The audio will be basically the music playing, and there will be conversation, sort of murmur underneath that. And it's important that the music is actually the main focus of the audio, and the murmur should be down under. It's easy for our congregation to get boisterous during the conversation before church. So the audio person needs to monitor that closely. Now, before the service starts, or before 10 o'clock, the director needs to communicate with the usher. And right before 10 o'clock, the usher needs to ring the bell. And the director may have to get the usher's attention to go, ring the bell now. And just before 10 o'clock, you want that to happen as close to 10 o'clock as possible. And right when the bell ends ringing, then you give the cue to the minister who starts the service. And that should happen just very smoothly, quickly, bing, bang, bong. Now, this is where the rules of television production really come into play. A lot of non-professionals will think that, okay, now we're going, the camera's hot, the minister's doing this thing, we can relax for a while. But that's not the way video production, good video production really works. The way a director looks at a production where you have a live audience, in this case, the congregation, you're trying to give the at-home viewers the same experience as the people who are sitting in the pews are getting. So when you're sitting in the pews, you're not just sitting there staring forward blankly, just looking at what's going on. You're doing a sort of an active viewing thing too, unless of course you don't really want to be there. So you may be focused on the minister, and the way your brain works is you're taking in the whole scene, but you are focused right here. So you're looking at the minister's face, and that's the shot that the director should be taking. Now, you might be, distracted by something and look around, or take in the wider view occasionally. And the director will do that too, because that's the way somebody in the pews is taking it in. When you're watching television, like it could be a Grammy Awards show or the State of the Union or whatever, the camera isn't just locked down on a shot of the speaker. They're going to the wide shot, they're going to cutaways of people watching, they're doing that. And that's because that's the way the audience is viewing it. They're looking at different things. And you want the at-home people to be taking in that same, sort of experience. So the camera, become our eyes, and the microphone become our ears, and the switcher and the mixing board is our brain. So what you have to do, especially as the audio person, well, actually both, but the audio person needs to realize that the people are going to hear everything. Now, when you're sitting in the pews, your brain is filtering out sounds that are unwanted and just focusing on this sound. But in a video production, everything comes through, and people at home get, it's not filtered so much for them. So you need to make sure that the primary audio is easily heard, and any extraneous audio is way down under. And the way they do that generally in video production is either pulling down the pots that aren't active, or muting them. And then when something is about to happen, unmuting them. So that room tone, people talking and whatever, does not become a distraction. So that's the kind of thing that you would do for both video and audio in these productions. You want that experience from of the people in the pews to come home without any distraction. So this is where the director really earns their money, or their kudos in this case. Directing at this point becomes a very active thing. Now you're trying to make the at-home people feel like they're getting the same experience as the people in the pews. So you want to stay on a shot for maybe a minute, maybe two at the very most, before you go to a cutaway. Another shot, maybe a wide shot of somebody listening, could be whatever it is. So, and you take those shots every minute or two, and only for a few seconds. It's like when you glance away at something in the church, when you're sitting in the pews there, it's only for a few seconds that you do that, and then you're back. So you don't want to hang on that shot for 15, 20 seconds or any longer. It's got to be, 5 seconds at the most, maybe a little bit more, but not much. So the cutaways are around 5 seconds, maybe. What you're going to look for in cutaways is something that, we don't have a lot of options because we only have two cameras. So you have the tight shot, which is going to be, when you're on the minister in the pulpit, the shot is going to look like this, what you're seeing right here. Maybe even a little tighter, but this will probably do it. Any wider and you're starting to get all kinds of distraction around the perimeter of the shot. You want the people to be focused on the minister. So this is the shot. This is the main shot. And then you can go to a wide shot on the other camera, and then back to the tight shot. And then you'll want to vary your cutaway. So the next cutaway might be something else. You might take a shot of the musicians, or maybe a slightly wider shot. And when I say slightly wider, I mean somewhere in between tight and all the way wide. Because if you don't go if the shot isn't too different, it causes other problems. Okay, let's talk about transitions. Now, there are millions of transitions in the television and film world, but there are three that are used 99% of the time. And that's the cut, the dissolve, and the fade. The cut is by far the most popular and most used. Probably 98% of transitions are cuts. If you watch any TV show, and it's, the whole show would be cuts. There's nary a transition, like a fade or a dissolve, and the whole thing just cuts. So the cut is desirable because it's clean, and it keeps the pace of the project up. The dissolve, it can be used as a transition from one place to another, or a span in time sometimes, but in the same place, like in our sanctuary, a dissolve within the sanctuary like that would be, it could be artsy, but in this case it might be almost have that sort of spiritual kind of look to it. But so I think there's an argument that a dissolve slowing the production down isn't probably a real hard case to be made. I don't feel strongly about it. I would lean toward cuts, but anyhow, the last transition that we would use is the fade, and that's usually at the end of a transition. At the end of a scene or the production, you would fade to black or whatever. They are also sometimes used as a transition in a break in time, so going back in time or forward in time. So anyhow, keep that in mind when directing the production, and try to see what feels right to you in the particular case. Because there may be times when I think, right now, it seems like almost everything we do is a dissolve. But I think there would be a lot of times when a cut would be more appropriate. You might just check that out. So let's talk about framing for a little bit now. Framing is one of those things that is kind of a hard concept for non-professionals to get. If you see snapshots taken by, your normal folk, they're almost always too wide and include too much background and all that sort of thing. You see the same photograph taken by a professional, and it's much tighter and includes mainly just the subject. And oftentimes it's a head and shoulders shot like you're seeing right here. So one of the things is that when you are the director, when you go to a tight shot, this should be your shot. framed about like this. The minister at the pulpit, or even standing in the middle of the stage. This should be the shot. Now, if they're walking around or talking with their hands, you might want to be a little wider, because you don't want them, wandering out of scene, or, it's fun to watch people talk with their hands. So, be a little wider for that kind of thing. Groups of people, like if there were 2 people together, of course it would be a little wider, room for somebody over here, but about, this much room on the side of each person. Say the choir, you want it to be as tight as you can be, include the whole choir, but not so much background. Lean toward too tight, I think, would be sort of the rule, because it's easy to be too loose. So just lean a little tighter. Now, also, there's the thing about where to place somebody's head in the shot, and there's a rule about that. The eyes should always be at this sort of 70% of the screen, right? That line, or the 2/3 line, maybe 66%. That's where the eyes should almost always be. There are exceptions to that rule, but you want them to be about like that. And you want a little bit of headroom here, not too much, like this would be too much headroom, and my eyes are down here in the middle of the screen. So, I want to be right about here, this is good framing. Now, as far as horizontal, if I'm talking to somebody over here, I want a little looking room. I don't want to be talking like this. Generally, I want a little looking room. So if they're looking straight forward, you can be almost anywhere. You can have the person in the middle. You can have them off a little bit, 2/3 over here, 2/3 over here, something like that. And that, if you follow those rules, you'll get great looking shots every time. Now, the video production system that we have at church is perfect for what we're trying to do, but it does have some constraints. And the workarounds for those constraints are actually just considered good practices in the industry. So what that means is things like zooming and panning, which those cameras can do, should not be done live with a live camera. They're not meant to be live with this system, because it's just a little clunky. So no matter how slow you try to creep in on something, there's always a bump at the beginning and a bump at the end, which looks not so great. So if we do any of those moves on camera live, it looks amateurish and sloppy. So try to avoid those kinds of things as much as you can. We have a 2-camera system, so which is sort of constraining in a way, because we only have 2 cameras. You can't have a number of shots set up to go to. So it requires that the director be on their toes a little more. If you're on a tight shot of the minister and they start to move out of frame, you want to go to the wide shot right away. Don't let them leave frame and then take it. If you see them start to go out of frame, take the wide shot right there. And if they happen to not go completely out of frame and just pop back in, it doesn't matter. You're on a wide shot. You can always go back in again. You can also do that to a cutaway. You can go to a cutaway, but it'll look a little funky going to a cutaway just as they're moving. So your second camera, most of the time, should be set up on a wide shot. Now, like I said earlier, you want to make the online audience, give them the same experience as in the pews audience. So That does mean occasionally you'll go to a two-shot or a cutaway somewhere else from the tight shot to a two-shot and then back again. But generally, if you're just sort of hanging out there for a little bit, make your second camera always a wide shot. And then if you decide, okay, I'm going to go to a cutaway, go make the second camera tight and then take it. And then when you go back, then make it wide again. The wide shot is always your safety camera. And especially because if somebody leaves frame, you want to be there on the wide shot, and it'll look natural to do that. So don't try to follow them with the zoom or the pan. It's just not gonna look good. Okay, we've talked about framing quite a bit here, but there is one thing that you want to be aware of. There's a type of cut called a jump cut, which is an unfortunate cut that you do not want to make. And what that is, in your case, it's going to be where the two shots that you're starting at one shot and you're going to another shot, and those two shots are too similar. You want the shots to be dissimilar enough that it's not jarring for the viewer. Because if the shots are too similar, like you're on a shot like this, and then you go to a shot that's just a little bit wider, that would be too similar, and it's jarring. I can't explain why, and it took me a long time to understand it, and I still have a hard time explaining why that is a problem. But if you want, there is a story that I can tell that helps illustrate that, but I won't do it here. But what you want to make sure is that the shot that you are going to is enough dissimilar in focal length that it isn't jarring. So, and I don't know how to tell you how far that is, because it can vary. And part of the reason that it's a problem for us is that both of our cameras are mounted on the same wall very close together. And so it sets up a situation where we could create a jump cut fairly easily. Most of what I have seen on our production so far, very few jump cuts have ever been done. So it's not really a problem for us now, but if we start making a lot more cuts in our production, which I'm encouraging you to do, it's more likely to happen. So just be aware that the two shots that you're putting together are dissimilar enough in focal length that in focal length, not vocal length, that it won't be a problem. So, that I think brings us to kind of what's happening at the end of the service. We go into our sing circle at the end, and the shot there, the primary shot would be the wide shot, as wide as possible. There is a framing thing to it, and most of the time the framing on that has been great. Sometimes I've seen framing that is a little high, has way too much headroom, but most of the time our framing looks pretty good on that shot. So, and I did mention earlier that you could go to some cutaways of people, in groups, small groups of 2, 3, 4, 5 people, if you want to. I think staying on the wide shot is fine. And then at the end of the service, after the singing and the music continues on, stay on that wide shot for 5 seconds, 5 or 10 seconds or whatever, and then go to the copyright card, the music copyright card. And you can stay on that for the duration. And then at that time, when the copyright card comes up, the audio tech will slowly bring down the ambient mic so that all we hear is the music. So, and that should be a very, very slow fade. down. And then at the end, the editor will put on the end card. And that should do it. So anyhow, that I think concludes our tutorial, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have, because I've had almost a blast doing it. So we'll see you at church, and thanks so much for being a part of the crew, because it's what you're doing is really valuable, and we all appreciate it. So thank you so much, and see ya. And maybe there'll be another one of these about something. I don't know what, but we'll see. Okay, thanks. See ya. Bye.